Now we're going to do inset insoles for these platforms, which is a little bit different to anything we've done before. So let me first explain what I mean. Here's an insole board which I have prepared earlier. And as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller than the platform itself. And it's sort of designed to sit inside there like that and sort of sink down into the platform, and that's where we've got these ridges here, and you can see a little bit of platform all the way around the insole there. So there's one really important thing that we have to remember when we're cutting the insole down to size, and that is that even though it wants to be a little bit smaller so that it's sitting inset into the platform, we need to leave space for the leather that's firstly covering the platform itself, but also covering the insole board. So try not to make it so that it just fits into the platform. Try and make it so that it's a little bit smaller all the way around, like by a couple of mil, maybe 3 mil or something like that. You don't need to overthink it, but that is what we're setting out to achieve, and we're going to do it together now anyway, so let's dive in. So how I'm going to figure out how to cut this down to size is that I'm going to make a little pattern of the inside of the platform. Right, so in order for us to get a pattern for how this is supposed to fit in there, we're going to take our masking tape, but just be aware if the masking tape is going to take any color or finish off the material you're using, because we don't want that. And I'm just going to basically layer the tape across the platform to sort of get a pattern for the inside. And once we've done that, we can take our pencil and just trace the inside of the platform. So once you've drawn that mark on, you can then peel the tape off and then lay it flat on some paper. And then you can go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so a couple of things. It's normal to encounter a little bit of resistance when you're putting that tape down. So don't get too worried if it's not going where you want it to go, because this is just a starting point and we can of course tweak it as we go. I also cut on the inside of my pencil lines just to make this a little bit smaller all the way around, because remember, we're also going to be covering this piece with leather, so that will sort of bulk out the area a little bit as well. So I just like to sort of place that inside there like that, just to see how it fits. And I'm actually pretty happy with that. I would say maybe just up in this curve here, we could take a little bit more out. But that will sort of flow into our insole board anyway. But this is a good point if you want to make it smaller, make it bigger, whatever you need to do so that it sort of fits nicely in there, but has enough space for you to cover it with leather as well. All right, and just for fun, I'm gonna flip that and I'm gonna check it on the other side as well. It looks like, I don't know why it wasn't as obvious on the first one, but it looks like it's kind of missing an area there. Like it wants to be rounded out a little bit more. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of tape and do just that. So I've taken the tape and I'm folding it back on itself, and I'm just gonna round that area off a little bit more. And then we'll cut that out and we'll see how that looks. I've probably done it a little bit too much, to be honest, but let's have a look. No, seems to look pretty good actually. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so now that we've got that pattern done, we can sort of line it up with our insole board, sort of like this, trying to sort of conserve where those curves are. Now, what I like to do before I start is actually just to loosen up these insoles a little bit right into that curve. And I just sort of press them down on the table. And once I've done that, I can actually place it inside the platform. And you want to kind of line it up in a way where the edge isn't like drastically overlapping on that inside. So you kind of want to match them so that that curve lines up nicely there. Now, the most important thing to remember when you do this is that if you keep bringing this down, you might end up making the shoes too small. So what I recommend is that you start with slightly bigger insoles so that you can cut them down. But as a good insurance policy, I would just take a measurement of the length of your foot and measure it roughly from the tip of the platform to the end there. I know that this is gonna fit me fine because I also have a last here, which is a size 4, and I can see if I put that on the back, even though it's not the exact right sort of pitch for this, lengthwise I can see I'm gonna have more than enough to play with. So that is great news. It means that I can line up my platforms with the edge of my insoles there, and I can sort of do a mark where the where the platform is coming to. And then if I take my pattern, I know that my insole's coming sort of all the way there. I can then cut out the front while sort of following the inside curve. So you'll see I kind of centered the line there, and we will start by cutting that one out and then just see how it looks. I would assume we'll have to trim a little bit more than this, but it's a good starting point. Okay, so I used my pattern and I trimmed the excess off there. And when I place it inside the platform, it kind of fits pretty nicely around here, but up in that area, it's sort of sitting right alongside it rather than inset. So there's gonna be a little bit more work to do here to get this to fit nicely inside the platform, and probably a little bit of sanding as well. So I'm just gonna draw on here how much of it needs to come off using my pattern. And I'm gonna see if I can get some of it off with my heavy duty scissors first, just so that it's a bit less sanding to do. Okay. I'm gonna do some serious sanding now. So I'm gonna grab my trusty Dremel and some safety goggles, and I'm gonna just shave some more of the excess off the sides here so that it does just sit really nicely inside that platform. Okay, that is looking really, really good now. Let's see how it fits inside our platform. Really, really good. I would say we could just take an absolute slither off this side here, just there, because it's just overhanging the tiniest bit. I'm also just noticing it's a bit tight around the front. So I'm gonna take a slither off the front as well, just so again, I've got space to cover it. Okay, I'll do the front part with the scissors because it's faster. And then I'll grab the Dremel again and do the last little bit on the side there. Okay, that is now looking really, really good. All right, so now that I've got this insole perfect, before we move on to do our second insole, there's a few additional tasks that we need to do here. So first of all, I want to mark on here where I want my strap to go, my front strap. I'm going to do a really, really simple, just one strap over the toes for this design. But if you wanted to do multiple straps or get creative with it, you would use this same technique, just wherever you want your straps to go. So I've got a ruler here, and I'm gonna do a thin strap that's about 1.5 centimeters wide. And I'm just gonna cut that out of a piece of paper as sort of like a pretend strap. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of masking tape, and I'm placing the tape just at the ends of the straps. And then I'm actually gonna place my foot onto here and position this strap over the toes exactly where I want it to go. Okay, so I've roughly got that in position now. So what I do there is I'm just gonna mark exactly on the insoles where that strap is going. And it's really important that you follow the angle of the strap. So I can now take away the paper, and you'll see what I'm left with there is 2 little marks that show where the straps want to go. Now these want to be a little bit wider than your strap and a little bit deeper than you'd imagine as well, because keep in mind, we are gonna cover all of this with leather, so it wants to sit nice and flush in there. Now it's really important that these squares aren't too deep because you want it to sort of sit nice and flush. But I would say somewhere maybe 3 mil, something like that, 3 or 4 mil deep. Okay, so once you've got those little slits cut out, you can sort of see now that your straps should sort of sit nicely within those little cut marks. Now we can make a pattern for our other foot. Like I said, if you had lots of different straps here and you wanted to do a bit more of an intricate design, you would just cut out little slots for whatever you've got. But what I really want to make sure for my other insole is that the angle is correct, the slots are in exactly the right place, and that those angles are correct and the length is the same. So I'm going to use this to create a pattern for the other insole. So one strip all the way down the center, and then I'm just laying additional pieces of tape straight across, and I'll do that all the way down the length of the last until I've got the whole thing covered. Okay, so once you've got the insole taped up, you can just take your pencil and trace around the edge. We'll then peel that off and lay it flat on our paper and then go ahead and cut it out. Okay, now I know a lot of you are going to be very tempted to skip this step, but I urge you not to, because what happens if you don't get the exact same angle as the first one is that you can end up with a sort of incorrect pitch happening. And let me show you what I mean. So this insole fits perfectly in there, and if I place the heel in position, it all looks good and normal, right? This insole I cut without doing this step because I was trying to cheat and speed it up, but I got that angle totally off and ends up looking a bit like this. Big gap, big problem, because when I bring that down to meet the heel, it then sends the pitch of the front up. Now there's a couple of things going on here. One is that this insole is still actually far longer than that one, which is why it's really pushing that up. And I'll just show you here, it's about that much too long. And in fact, if we place our pattern on it there, we can see how much extra is on there. To the naked eye, these two insoles don't look that dissimilar in length to me, but they are significantly, and you can see how much that has just sent the pitch totally wrong. So what we would do with our second one is take this pattern, flip it upside down, place it on, and then trace around it. It also really helps us to make sure we've got the strap positions in exactly the right spot on both shoes, which is pretty important. And let's check it now. Right, so much better. So it's really, really important that you make the effort to get that pattern right. And now we can go ahead and get them covered.